My scumbag husband kicked me in the stomach in front of everyone. He and his pregnant mistress poured red wine on me, mocking me for being unable to bear children and therefore unfit for the CEO position. His family only cared about a grandchild. No one believed I could save the bankrupt Preston Enterprises. But they didn't know, Anderson Industries' cooperation deal only recognized me. Once I exposed the truth, the scumbag's construction project collapsed, and evidence of his embezzlement was fully revealed. I personally sent him to prison for life. To climb the ladder, I desperately sought funding from Robert's parents to sponsor my studies abroad. 2 years later, I became an industry elite. His parents brought me into Preston Enterprises, and I even became their daughter-in-law. I put my heart and soul into maintaining the family and made the company flourish. But on the day I was announced as the new CEO, Rob appeared before me with a heavily pregnant woman. In front of everyone, he kicked me in the stomach. "Bitch, you think you're fit to be CEO of Preston Enterprises? Get lost, you trash who can't provide a male heir." The woman beside him was even more arrogant, splashing red wine all over me. For the sake of the company's future, I swallowed my pride and begged on my knees. But he was full of disdain, stepping on my head. "A woman who can't provide a male heir is useless in the Preston family. I don't believe you actually have the ability to manage the company." Looking at his face, I was so angry I laughed out loud. "To your disappointment, I actually do have the ability." They didn't know that the company was facing bankruptcy, and only my project could save Preston Enterprises. But as soon as I finished speaking, waves of laughter washed over me. "Oh, don't hurt your tongue talking big. The Preston family's success today is all thanks to Rob's connections and capabilities. You're just a kept woman the Preston family raised. Do you really think you're a savior?" A woman with the diamond bracelet twirled her wine glass, her nails practically poking my face. "You can't even bear a male heir, and you still want to make waves in the business world? I think you're reaching for the stars. Women should just obediently go home and serve their husbands and in-laws. That's the proper way. Why come out here and make a fool of yourself? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at?" Spittle splattered on my face, and their vicious words were like sharp knives twisting in my heart. But I didn't waver, because I was confident in my abilities. When I was studying abroad back then, I was a star student and even received offers from top 10 programs in the world. After graduation, I gave up everything to work for Preston Enterprises. Besides repaying Robert's parents' kindness for funding my overseas education, it was also to use Preston Enterprises as a stepping stone to let my designs represent the nation on the world stage. Go ahead and curse me. I will not leave Preston Enterprises. I spoke calmly, my voice not loud, but it made the entire ballroom fall silent instantly. Seeing this, Rob looked disdainful. "Who do you think you are? When did Preston Enterprises need you to have a say?" I knew my position was indeed difficult to gain support, so I immediately found Robert's parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Preston, you know my capabilities." Upon hearing this, the elderly couple exchanged glances and then patted my shoulder. "Of course we know. No one here can compare to you." Hearing this, a sense of relief washed over me. But soon, I plummeted back into despair. They looked at Summer Hayes beside Rob, a hint of dissatisfaction in their eyes. "It's just, this pregnancy, why is there still no news after so long?" I froze instantly, the tiny spark of hope that had ignited in my heart gradually extinguished. These past few years, I had worked tirelessly to assist Preston Enterprises, turning it into an industry giant in just 3 years. I poured all my effort into proving my capability, yet all they cared about was my ability to bear children. "Did you fund my overseas education back then not because you valued my abilities?" I asked unwillingly. "That was part of it," Mrs. Preston said impatiently. "But more importantly, it was the ability to continue the family line." Upon hearing this, I felt dizzy and a bitter taste filled my throat. I increased Preston Enterprises' profits 5-fold in 3 years. In your eyes, is all of that worth less than a child? Nonsense. Before Mrs. Preston could speak, Rob cut in. "Always buried in those blueprints, mumbling to yourself. What kind of proper woman is like you, neglecting the home and showing your face outside every day?" He glanced at my disheveled state, full of disdain. Any secretary the Preston family hires could do that. Does the earth stop turning without your hands? Seeing this, Summer also started fanning the flames. She walked up to me triumphantly, showing off her belly. See? A woman's uterus determines her destiny. At this, the surrounding guests began to whisper. Rob cornered me against the wall and snatched off the pearl necklace the Preston family had given me when we got married. Pack your things and get out. The Preston family doesn't need someone like you. Looking at the scattered pearls on the floor, I suddenly felt incredibly ironic. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I desperately fought to hold them back. I stubbornly raised my head. You have no right to fire me. Chapter 2. Everyone gasped, looking at each other in shock. I took the documents I carried with me from my bag and showed them to everyone. To be honest, the company is in financial trouble lately, on the verge of bankruptcy. Right now, only my project can attract investment for Preston Enterprises. As soon as I finished speaking, several of the elders at the forefront slammed their cups, glass shards scat. Airing at my feet. This little slut has learned to be an alarmist? The Preston family's foundation is not for you to point fingers at. Their cloudy eyes scanned me up and down. I heard you were involved with foreigners abroad, no signs of pregnancy, maybe you're already rotten inside. Are you using the company as a cover-up now? Your design drafts are too dirty even to wipe the Preston family's shoes. Seeing the situation spinning out of control, Mrs. Preston also walked up, trembling. I know you're strong, but you can't make up such lies. Mr. Preston sighed heavily, looking at me with deep disappointment. You shouldn't show off in front of the elders. Hurry up and apologize to everyone. They attacked me relentlessly, but I didn't think I had done anything wrong. As soon as I joined Preston Enterprises, I discovered many financial irregularities. Countless fake data in the financial reports, freeloaders with connections everywhere. Everyone present now had, more or less, pocketed company money. I spent countless hours and energy to revitalize the company. The people I offended during this time were probably countless. Now that they were attacking me fiercely, I had already prepared myself. I wiped the red wine off my clothes and pulled out the cooperation proposal I had prepared earlier. Look closely! The Anderson Industries cooperation agreement is right here. The heir of the Anderson family explicitly stated that I must be the project manager, otherwise, the deal is off. As soon as I spoke, Rob grabbed the document and ripped it to shreds. How could Anderson Industries be interested in you? You're just using the Preston family name to gain advantages. Hearing this, I almost laughed out loud. Rob, you truly are a good-for-nothing pretending to be a rich second generation. Your own company is on the verge of bankruptcy, and you're still living in fantasy. The project with Anderson Industries was something I worked on for several sleepless nights. Without me, Preston Enterprises would have gone under long ago. Since you're so confident, call David Anderson and prove it to everyone. Perhaps feeling a bit of pity, Mrs. Preston tried to ease the tension. I confidently pulled out my phone and called, but to my surprise, after dialing several times, the only response was a monotonous busy signal. Instantly, deafening laughter erupted in the ballroom. Summer walked up to me in her high heels, her nail digging into my phone screen. Oh, isn't this the savior of our Preston Enterprises? How come you can't even get through on the phone? Did you just find some random guy on the street to put on a show? She deliberately raised her voice, her eyes full of triumph. Oh dear, some women are truly unscrupulous to climb the social ladder, daring to latch onto top-tier families like Anderson Industries. Rob snatched my phone and threw it on the ground, sneering at me. Catherine Miller, you're still too green. What's David Anderson's status? I begged him for days and nights with blueprints, and he wouldn't agree. How could someone like him be interested in you? The guest sneers came one after another, and Summer deliberately added fuel to the fire. What's the big deal about being able to draw blueprints? Holding on to a man with your womb, that's the real skill. Looking at her like that, I just felt pathetic. A woman's value is far more than just that. Heh, do you think having a child gets you everything? Chapter 3. Hearing this, Summer's face instantly darkened. Seeing the woman he loved wronged, Rob also lost his composure. Catherine Miller, Are you jealous? He took my medical report from his briefcase and deliberately read out the diagnosis result loudly. Bilateral ovarian damage, permanent loss of fertility. At this, a sharp burst of laughter erupted in the ballroom. Now what do you have to say? Rob threw the report at my face, the paper cutting my cheek painfully. You faked your medical report back then to trick my parents into sponsoring you abroad, and pretended to be a virgin to secure the marriage/funding. You're truly despicable. Mrs. Preston staggered, leaning against the wall, her face full of shock. She grabbed the ashtray from the table and violently threw it at me. You ungrateful wretch! We funded your education, but you used your barren body to harm my son. I didn't! I grabbed Mrs. Preston's trembling wrist, but she violently shook me off. That laboratory explosion accident back then. And there's more. At this, everyone present fell silent. Summer took out a thick stack of documents, looking at me coldly. That competition back then, if you hadn't used your body to bribe the teacher, how could you have pushed me out? Your works were completely plagiarized from mine. I widened my eyes, looking at her in disbelief. I didn't. You're framing me. Her words reminded me that Summer was a junior from my school. I didn't have much of an impression of her, only hearing her name mentioned at the school-wide disciplinary assembly. But I didn't expect her to blame everything on me. Rob pushed me away. Enough. You're still trying to argue. Summer's design drafts are right here. Anyone with eyes can see which is superior. He turned to Summer, his eyes full of tenderness and admiration. Summer is so talented. She is the one truly worthy of being the mistress of the Preston family. The surrounding guests echoed his sentiments, and Summer also smiled triumphantly, holding up the drafts to accept their compliments. But looking at her design, I was burning with anxiety. Don't be fooled. This design looks impressive, but many details are simply impractical. If implemented according to this, it will definitely cause many accidents. I shouted hoarsely, but no one believed me. Summer feigned a wronged look, causing Rob's eyes to become even colder. Catherine Miller, you're just jealous. I kept explaining, but he turned a deaf ear, telling an assistant nearby, go, smash that bitch's laboratory. Don't leave anything behind. I widened my eyes and shouted to stop him. Rob, you can't do that. But he just looked at me coldly, as if I were an ant. He deliberately held up his phone, letting me see the security camera footage of the laboratory clearly. On the screen, several bodyguards rushed into the laboratory, smashing everything. All my design drafts, my life's work, were rapidly swallowed by the flames. I collapsed to my knees, pleading bitterly. Rob, I beg you, don't. But he was indifferent, grabbing my collar, his eyes venomous. I'm giving you a chance now, admit your mistakes yourself. I raised my tear-streaked face, staring directly at Rob. I didn't do anything wrong. Summer's drafts have problems. Before I finished speaking, Rob's fist landed heavily on my cheek, the taste of blood instantly filling my mouth. He grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the wall. Still unrepentant? Get out now. Don't stain the Preston family's ground. I lay limp on the carpet, my whole body trembling from the pain. Rob sneered and pulled out 2 documents. The words left with nothing on the divorce agreement stung my eyes. The phrasing resigned due to personal misconduct on the resignation letter made me nauseous. He roughly shoved a pen into my hand, forcing me to sign the documents. When it was all over, applause broke out in the ballroom. Summer, wearing high heels, deliberately stepped on my hand and ground her foot. You look like a dog now, you know that? At this, the sycophants rushed forward to humiliate me. Just then, my phone, which had been tossed in the corner, suddenly vibrated. Rob quickly picked it up. As he swiped the screen, the triumph on his face instantly froze. David Anderson's clear, cold voice came through the speakerphone. Excuse me, Ms. Miller, I missed your call, I was busy just now. Are we starting our collaboration? Chapter 4. At this, the ballroom instantly erupted. It's really David Anderson. Does Catherine Miller actually know him? They really have a collaboration? Could this be a twist? If she really hooked up with the Anderson family, wouldn't Preston Enterprises be a laughingstock? Hearing this, Rob's face changed dramatically. He clutched the phone and sneered. David Anderson? Your voice is as hoarse as a dying duck. Don't try to fool me with a voice changer. Soon, a few coughs came from the other end of the phone. David Anderson's voice was still clear and cold. I've had the flu recently, and my vocal cords are damaged. If Mr. Preston doesn't believe me, I can send you the doctor's diagnosis. Heh. What diagnosis? Rob scoffed dismissively, slamming the phone against me. Catherine Miller, you really went all out. You found a fake to fool me? He turned to the guests, a triumphant look on his face. From today onwards, any decision of the Preston family has nothing to do with this deceiver. From now on, Preston Enterprises will listen only to me. Hearing this, the crowd erupted in cheers, many vying to flatter him. But soon, a sharp laugh came from the phone. David Anderson's voice cut through the noise. Rob Preston, you useless idiot, still dreaming of being in charge of the Preston family. Everyone instantly fell silent. The sound of papers rustling came from the other end of the phone. Preston Enterprises' cash flow last month was only in the 7 digits. The $300 million loan that's due soon, how do you plan to pay that back? If Ms. Miller hadn't secretly used her patent as collateral, you'd all be lining up outside the courthouse right now. Hearing this, Mrs. Preston's face instantly turned pale. She staggered and grabbed Rob's hand. Rob, is that true? Of course not. Rob was instantly enraged, veins bulging on his forehead. This is just scaremongering lies they made up. Press. Ton Enterprises is a century-old company. How could it be destroyed so easily? Exactly. An old Preston Enterprises board member leaned on his cane, sneering at me. You venomous-hearted bitch, now that you can't cling to our Preston family, you want to drag everyone down with you? He hunched over and came closer, his foul breath on my face. Rob's father was truly blind back then to sponsor you. Now your true colors are revealed, and you want to bring down the Preston family to save yourself? Someone as wicked as you deserves to die 1,000 times over. Hearing this, Rob was incredibly moved, almost groveling before them. But I knew these old folks were greedier than anyone. They were just using Rob as a scapegoat, seeing that he was young, easily deceived, and lacked real talent. They were waiting for the building to have issues so they could smoothly acquire Preston Enterprises at a low price. I had investigated everything thoroughly. The money from Preston Enterprises had all been divided among these people. Their current arguments were merely because they didn't want to lose such a large cash cow as Preston Enterprises. I lowered my gaze, looking at my bruised body, and chuckled lightly. Speaking into the phone, my voice was calm, almost cold. Mr. Anderson, there's no need to argue with them anymore. Rob froze in place. The old board members shouting also stopped abruptly. I slowly stood up, wiping the blood from my face. From today onwards, I have no connection to Preston Enterprises. But our collaboration will continue, only under my personal name. Soon, Rob's harsh laughter echoed in the ballroom. Catherine Miller, stop putting on an act. Even if David Anderson stood right here today, I wouldn't care to collaborate with him. Preston Enterprises is enough with just me. But as soon as he finished speaking, the ballroom doors were kicked open. The violent crash startled everyone, and David Anderson's figure stood in the doorway. Is that so? If Mr. Preston is unwilling, then our collaboration ends here. Chapter 5. Rob stumbled back in fright, taking a sharp breath. You really know each other? But David Anderson ignored him, immediately taking off his suit jacket and draping it over me. Mr. Preston has a bad memory, David Anderson replied coldly, steadily helping me up. Last month, you waited 3 hours downstairs at Anderson Industries, begging me for a collaboration. Now you don't care about it? He looked at my bruised wrist, frowning. Or are you saying you don't care about the $300 million loan that Ms. Miller collateralized with her patent for you? Hearing this, Mrs. Preston collapsed onto a chair. The old board members exchanged glances, then cowered and lowered their heads when their eyes met David Anderson's. Mr. Anderson, you need to be reasonable. Summer walked forward, her fingers tracing her swollen belly, her gaze provocative. You shouldn't be deceived by this woman, Catherine Miller. The Preston family's century-old foundation can't be shaken by your sensational claims. Heh, who's deceiving whom? David Anderson interrupted with a cold laugh. Let's see if they still hold you in such high regard once they discover your true nature. Hearing this, Summer's fingers tightened abruptly, forcing a smile. What do you mean by that? Before she finished, Rob suddenly stepped in front of her, veins bulging in his neck. David Anderson, stop slandering her. Even if the Preston family goes bankrupt, we don't need your fake charity. But David Anderson didn't even spare him a glance, steadily scooping me up in his arms. As he stepped out the door, I couldn't help but speak. One last reminder, don't use Summer Hayes's design drafts. After arriving at the hospital, David Anderson meticulously arranged everything for me. Only after my wounds were bandaged did he speak. Since the Preston family doesn't know a good thing when the why see it, then Anderson Industries wants you. Just say the word, and you'll be the CEO of my company. Looking at his sincere expression, I couldn't have been happier. But after going through all this, I realized I was perfectly capable of starting my own company. So, without further thought, I replied, "Thank you, Mr. Anderson, but I still want to start my own company." A flicker of disappointment crossed David Anderson's face, but it was quickly replaced by admiration. He smiled and promised me, "All right, I will do my best to help you." After several months of recovery, I was completely healed. At the same time, news of the completion of the Preston Enterprises project also arrived. Looking at the photos published in the news, I knew they still hadn't listened to my advice. At that moment, the television was broadcasting the interview footage of the two of them. Rob was arm in arm with Summer, beaming as he answered reporters' questions. But when a reporter tentatively brought up, "We heard Ms. Catherine Miller once warned about potential safety hazards in the project," the smile on Rob's face instantly froze. Some people start talking nonsense after being kicked out, he deliberately put his arm around Summer. Summer's design drafts have been certified by 7 authoritative institutions. On the other hand, some people are using patents as a cover for cheating and deceiving. Summer coyly covered her mouth and chuckled. "It's okay, darling, as long as we're doing well, what kind of waves can those little clowns make?" Listening to their taunts, I only felt endless helplessness. But I thought that if an accident happened, innocent people would be hurt, and I softened again. After much hesitation, I still called him. As soon as the call connected, Rob's sneering voice came through. "Catherine Miller, you're really persistent, aren't you?" I gripped the phone tightly, my throat constricted. "Rob, I'm warning you one last time, Summer Hayes's drafts have serious errors. There will be a heavy rain tomorrow, and there's a high possibility of collapse. Lives are at stake, think carefully." "Enough!" Rob suddenly roared, his voice almost shattering my eardrum. "You've gone mad since being kicked out of the Preston family, haven't you? Now you're even cursing our project to fail? Let me tell you, even if it collapses, it's not your place to pretend to be compassionate." With that, Rob hung up the phone. Since things had come to this, I was powerless and could only silently pray that no serious accidents would happen. Chapter 6. The next day, the rain poured down. On television, Rob stood at the press conference in a suit, looking smug. "This project will be a milestone for our Preston family, leaving a significant mark in the history of world architecture." I gripped the remote control, my nails almost digging into my palm. Finally, I couldn't watch anymore. I turned off the television and threw myself onto the bed. I don't know how long passed before I was woken up by the jarring ringing of my phone. David Anderson's urgent voice came through. "Kate, the Preston Enterprises building, it collapsed." I shot up and turned on the television. Every channel was cycling through footage of the Preston Enterprises building collapse. The scene was a mess. However, fortunately, David Anderson and I had already prepared and evacuated the people in advance. So this time, the collapse did not result in any casualties, and because it was located in a relatively remote area, it didn't cause too much damage either. Even so, the residents living nearby were still furious, protesting with signs. I walked closer to the crowd and saw the area outside the Preston Enterprises building was surrounded by caution tape. The shouting from the loudspeakers, mixed with the sound of the rain, was almost deafening. Preston Enterprises are vampires, treating human lives like a game. If Mr. Anderson hadn't evacuated the people beforehand, how many would have died today? They talked a big game back then, but it was all shoddy construction. The Prestons belong in prison. The building collapsing today without deaths was a miracle. You black-hearted companies should be shut down for good. I looked around and only saw a few assistants busy explaining outside. There was no sign of Rob. But the next second, my phone rang. I took a deep breath and answered. The enraged roar from the other end almost shattered my eardrum. Catherine Miller, are you watching me make a fool of myself right now? If you had been firmer and stopped me back then, would this have happened today? He screamed at me like a madman, perhaps trembling from fear. Soon, the sound of breaking ceramics came from the background. Now the whole city is cursing Preston Enterprises, the stock has plummeted, and the partners want to withdraw their investments. Tell me, what should I do? Whoever caused the consequences should bear the responsibility. After enduring for so long, I felt I had finally had enough. I gripped the phone and laughed coldly, the emotions accumulated over the years exploding. I kindly advised you back then, how did you treat me? Now that something's happened, you come looking for me? Why should I help you? Perhaps not expecting such a strong reaction from me, there was a deathly silence on the phone. Last month, the Foundation settlement data was abnormal. I brought engineers to find you late at night, but you were on a yacht partying with Summer and had bodyguards kick us off the boat. Now the building has collapsed, and you're worried? What were you doing before? Do you think those old foxes on the board truly support you? They're just pushing you out as a scapegoat, waiting for the building to have problems so they can smoothly acquire Preston Enterprises at a low price. Hearing this, Rob was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his deliberately low word voice carried clear bravado. Catherine Miller, I'm telling you, if you can help me get through this difficulty, I will compensate you for everything that happened. But if you're unwilling, I won't necessarily make things easy for you either. As soon as he finished, I couldn't help but laugh. What right do you have to negotiate with me now? Do you think I'm afraid of you? With that, I hung up the phone and blocked him. Chapter 7. After hanging up the phone, I turned off my phone and fully dedicated myself to the operation of the new project. It wasn't until 2 days later, when I turned on the television, that I saw the news of the Preston family announcing bankruptcy. In the live television broadcast, Mrs. Preston was slumped on the steps in front of the Preston family mansion. After a few days, her hair had turned completely white and was now messily stuck to her tear-streaked face. She weakly pointed at Rob, who was kneeling on the ground, crying hysterically. It's all your fault, you rebellious son. You didn't want such a good wife as Kate, insisting on listening to that vixen's nonsense. Now look, that woman ran off with the money, what are we, a helpless mother and son, going to do? The scene switched. Rob was kneeling on the ground, stubble almost covering his pale face. Facing the microphone offered by a reporter, he just shook his head blankly. Want to go see? David Anderson's voice interrupted my thoughts. No need, I replied without hesitation. I had been more than fair in all matters. As for what happens next, I would leave them to their own devices. After losing contact with Rob for several months, I threw myself into the project, which was nearing completion. The day before the completion ceremony, David Anderson and I went out for a meal with our partners. Everyone was happy and cheerful, but someone started the conversation, and suddenly people began to tease, Ms. Miller, look at Mr. Anderson, he's handsome and wealthy, and he's been with you through so much hardship. Don't you have any feelings for him? The sudden words left me flustered. Catching a glimpse of the smile on David Anderson's lips out of the corner of my eye made me feel even hotter. Stop it, everyone. Mr. Anderson is who he is. I couldn't possibly hope to get close to someone like him. I intended to casually brush it off, but then he suddenly took my hand. Who says you're hoping to get close? Hearing this, the cheering around us grew louder. My heart rate suddenly quickened, and I was at a loss for how to respond. Just then, my phone vibrated, and I finally found an excuse to slip out. My delivery is here, I'll go grab it. But the moment I stepped out the door, I couldn't believe my eyes. Rob, dressed in a delivery uniform, was staring straight at me. I snatched the delivery bag and turned to go around him, but he blocked my path. His eyes were bloodshot. "Catherine Miller, you're truly despicable. Just a few months after the divorce, you couldn't wait to crawl into another man's bed?" Instantly, I felt my blood surge, my nails digging deep into my palms. "Watch your language. You're just after David Anderson's money." He suddenly grabbed my hand. "Just like you were after our family's money back then. All you women are gold diggers." He became more agitated, his expression gradually twisting. "Let go." I fiercely shook off his hand, stepping back half a step and hitting the wall. I wanted to run, but he held my hand tightly, leaving several bloody marks on my wrist. In the intense pain, the door was suddenly kicked open. David Anderson rushed out, almost instantly tearing Rob away and slamming his fist into his twisted face. Rob stumbled and fell to the ground, blood dripping from his mouth, yet he still screamed hysterically, "Catherine Miller, you're a slut. Say that again." Hearing this, David Anderson raised his fist, ready to strike again. Just as he was about to bring it down, Mrs. Preston suddenly stumbled out from the corner, her frail body collapsing onto Rob. "Stop! Stop! Stop hitting my son." Seeing her like that, I stopped David Anderson in time. After everything I had been through, I was exhausted. I didn't want to get entangled anymore and pulled David Anderson away. But as I turned, Mrs. Preston suddenly spoke. "Kate, can we talk?" Chapter 8. I led Mrs. Preston into the private dining room. She shakily took a sip of hot tea and suddenly became teary-eyed. "Kate, you don't know how difficult it was when your father-in-law and I were starting our business. We suffered a lot to make the Preston family as prosperous as it is today. Precisely because of that, we are very cautious about people and matters. But when I first saw you, I knew you were a good girl. Even if you hadn't tried so hard to please us, I would have definitely sponsored you. We funded your overseas education, raised you like our own daughter, thinking you could bring good fortune to the Preston family." "Mrs. Preston," I interrupted her. "When Preston Enterprises kicked me out back then, you didn't say any of this to me." Hearing this, she suddenly grabbed my hand. "That was all Rob being foolish. Now he knows he was wrong. The company is gone, his wife ran off, he can't even get a hot meal." Her tears fell on my hand. "Kate, you need to have a conscience. The Preston family did you a great kindness. You can't just watch Rob starve to death, can you?" Seeing her like this, I finally understood the purpose of her wanting to talk to me alone. She was just trying to extort money from me, thinking I was soft-hearted and easy to manipulate. Unfortunately, I had already changed. I pulled back my hand, which was gripped painfully. "I have repaid the Preston family's great kindness enough. Don't think you can use that to blackmail me forever." Seeing that she couldn't threaten me, she immediately raised her voice and started shouting, "You ungrateful wretch! You want to kill me!" Before she finished, she fell straight backward, kicking her feet on the floor. The private dining room door was instantly kicked open, and the waiter rushed in. "Ma'am, how could you treat an elderly person like this?" Soon, several curious customers immediately blocked the doorway, holding up cameras to record. Accusations instantly surrounded me, while Mrs. Preston lay on the ground, smiling triumphantly at me, seemingly certain that I wouldn't be able to do anything to her. I clenched my trembling fists, my nails almost digging into my palms. Is Mrs. Preston's act over? Before I could react, David Anderson had stepped in front of me. "I forgot to tell you, there are hidden cameras in the private dining room with full coverage." Hearing this, Mrs. Preston's fingers, which had been stiff on the ground, suddenly curled up. She couldn't say anything more. Considering what had happened in the past, I still chose not to call the police. But just when I thought I had finally gotten rid of them completely, reality hit me hard again. On the day the project was completed, negative information about me suddenly flooded the internet. Photos of me that had been maliciously photoshopped were widely circulated online. These were photos from my life and the Preston family, distorted into various indecent poses, with accompanying text that was utterly disgusting. I instantly felt my blood surge, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. I knew this was Rob's doing. But before I could confront him, he actually called me first. "Catherine Miller, long time no see." His voice carried a nauseating smugness. "You saw what's online, right? This is just the appetizer. If you're smart, hand over 30 million. Otherwise, there's more to come." I clenched my fist, my voice trembling with anger. "You're using my photos for malicious photoshopping and spreading rumors. Aren't you afraid of the consequences?" Hearing this, Rob scoffed. "I don't care about that. As long as this stuff circulates online, your reputation is completely ruined. I've already reached an agreement with your rival company. If anything happens, they'll take the fall." I wanted to argue, but Rob had already hung up. I collapsed onto the sofa, helpless, tears streaming down my face. Chapter 9. As I expected, at the completion ceremony site, there were indeed many people wearing masks, holding up my photos and causing trouble. "Slut! Who climbed up by sleeping around? Stop pretending to be the photos are irrefutable evidence. Get off the stage quickly. Shameless thing." Filthy words like a tidal wave threatened to drown me. The distinguished guests I had invited were also starting to leave. I humbly stood up to try and persuade them to stay, but I unintentionally met Rob's gaze. He was standing behind the crowd, arms crossed, looking at me with a cold sneer. "Don't touch me." In my daze, someone from the crowd actually came up to pull my hair and tear my clothes. In the panic, David Anderson pulled me into his arms and, without a word, took me away from the scene. Watching my hard work crumble, I was numb and couldn't speak. David Anderson parked the car outside the apartment building and spoke cautiously. "I'll see you up." I numbly got out of the car, but suddenly I couldn't control myself and started laughing. In the rearview mirror, I saw my eyes were bloodshot. "David Anderson, I used to think that because the Preston family funded my education, even if they treated me badly later, I should still repay that kindness. But now, I don't think it's necessary anymore." He silently took off his suit jacket and draped it over me. "What do you want to do? An eye for an eye." Back home, I opened a long-forgotten folder on my computer. It contained bank statements showing Rob embezzling company funds to buy Summer Hayes a yacht, evidence of collusion with Finank to create fake accounts. This is enough to keep him in prison for the rest of his life. Late at night, I dug up all the dirt on the rival company, combined it with Rob's previous recording evidence, and organized everything to send to the media. With everything done, I looked tiredly at the bustling night view outside the window, a sense of calm in my heart. "Since you want to destroy me, I'll tear open the truth for everyone to see." The next morning, the negative information about Rob and the rival company were all over the news headlines. Some anonymous internet users even exposed more explosive scandals, and the comments section was filled with curses. Due to the public opinion, many of the rival companies' collaborations were terminated, and those investors came looking to collaborate with me. I was in a coffee shop dealing with my affairs when Mrs. Preston suddenly called me. When I answered, a choked sob came from the other end. "Kate, I beg you, save Rob." Perhaps out of fear, her voice was intermittent. "Those people are coming for him. What should we do?" "If there's trouble, call the police," I responded calmly. But just as I hung up the phone, a loud crash suddenly came from a distance. A black car stopped across the street, and Rob lay on the ground, covered in blood. Seeing everything before me, I stood frozen in place. Later, the rival company was legally sanctioned because of the scandal, and Rob lay in the intensive care unit for several months before finally being out of danger. After recovering, he was sentenced to life in prison. I saw him for the last time in the hospital room. This time, he seemed to have changed a lot. There was no longer hostility in his eyes, but rather a sense of relief. "Kate, I'm sorry." That was the last thing he said to me. After that, we never saw each other again. A week later, I gave a bank card to Mrs. Preston. Mrs. Preston, Go back to your hometown and live out your retirement." She trembled, clutching my hand, crying uncontrollably. I have completely let go of the past. Now, David Anderson and I have formed a new family and are very happy.